I have been so fortunate to find my calling in the training of actors, which is really about, yes, giving them the skills and the tools of the Meisner work and of acting and theater making and storytelling as I understand it, and was passed down to me by my mentors. I had students in the classroom on Friday the 13th, which was the day, and I was supposed to go to Mexico the next day on vacation, and made the decision the night before not to, and used that week to wrestle with my own doubts and seeing whether we could make it work. So I don't know, and we did, and we called every student, and they reluctantly, in many cases, suspiciously, said they'd try it out. We had a lot of doubt. I had a lot of doubt. They're like, I don't think this is going to work. So looking back, I'm very proud that we did, and I can't imagine not doing it. And it has turned out that the work is not like a poor cousin to the in-person work, which I would have perhaps predicted it would be. Yesterday in a scene, they were doing a scene from Waiting for Lefty, beautiful scene, Clifford Odets, and the guy playing the husband couldn't always hear his partner. And as part of the scene, he would say, "I can't hear you," right? And got frustrated, and that became the work. So it's forced us to be really improvisational. We've discovered, the only things that are, she was doing Waiting for Lefty, where the woman is on the floor scrubbing, And she set her laptop up to catch her doing that. And then, as you know, in that scene, there's a point in the 2/3 of the way through, 3/4 of the way through, where she stops scrubbing the floor and starts getting dressed to kind of manipulate her husband into thinking she was going to go see her old boyfriend, Bud Haas. And he earns a living. He still has my picture in his watch. See much? And so she lifted the laptop up as she got up off the floor and put it someplace else without dropping a beat, and started getting dressed. So it's made the actors very nimble. You need to have really thick skin, and you have to really need to do it. You have to be obsessed. So the choice to go and train right now is a brave choice. Because this is a very tough time emotionally with, let's call it the dual pandemics, the pandemic of this virus, the economic impact of the virus, the health impact of the virus. Almost all of us know someone who has perished. And then the second pandemic which was set off by the spark of George Floyd's murder, but has been going on for 400 years in this country, and the systematic racism and white supremacy and injustice. And so emotionally, this is just the hardest time. We are all hurting, and some of us are hurting much, much more. And in the midst of that, to make the brave choice to work on art, to have the belief when every bone in your body and your soul says, "I can't," as Samuel Beckett said, "I can't go on, I must go on." To face that, if you can make art in this moment, you can do anything. So just in terms of the resilience piece, how brave is it, I think, to choose, we talk about compartmentalization, which is a very important skill, which means being able to put your shit to the side. Now, that's hard for actors because, A, we're so emotional. we feel so much more and know how much more we're feeling. We have to have thin skin and feel not only our pain and joy, but the world's pain and joy. And boy, is there a lot of it right now. And it seems more every day. It's, you know, just when you thought it couldn't get worse, this Rayshard fellow gets killed, and a 19-year-old Black Lives Matter woman was found dead, and 2 young people were found hanging from trees. I mean, it's coming to a head where it's almost too much to bear. And to be able to decide to make work now in the midst of all this is just generates the most massive respect in me, and appreciation and gratitude, because we will need stories. Art is important. Art heals. Art holds the mirror up to nature. There are stories of oppression and injustice and fear that and joy and celebration and being superheroes and all kinds of things that need to be told, and will need to be told skillfully. So if you can get up in the morning and rehearse or come to class in the midst of this, man, if you don't get that part you need, if that agent drops you, if that lousy actor gets the part who you hate of your favorite novel and you were born to play that part, yes, that will hurt. But boy, are you going to have this resilience, this capacity to go on and to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. So that. The second part has to do with time. A colleague that I respect very much, who teaches at another school, university, tells his students, do not let this time be, do not let this was before George Floyd, but do not let this virus, but we can say, do not let this time be an excuse for why you didn't become the best you could become. People say we're on pause. Not really. The calendar is not on pause. Time is marching on. Theater in this country, Broadway especially, has become a luxury, and therefore there's a kind of economic injustice and accessibility. Who gets to watch theater? Who doesn't? And it's more white people from the suburbs and tourists that get to watch theater when the tickets go as high as $200 and more, or Hamilton, $500. And yes, they have the lottery and they do a few things, but basically the economic structure of theater is broken. So I don't know how that works, but I really, one of the great things about London is that it's more accessible. It's not completely accessible, but it's more accessible. You can see more theater for less money in London. Great theater. It's just more valued over there, and they seem to do it better. And the other thing is, I think actors have had a chance in working on Zoom to get really good at self-taping,
Totally.
which was how the industry was moving anyway. The days of getting an audition, which meant you showed up at a casting director's office in a room full of a bunch of other actors, has been passing. That doesn't happen so much anymore. You get the sides, they say, please put this on self-tape, make sure we see you from your torso up, slate before you do it, which is kind of amazing because the actor gets to edit. So if I go to an audition, what I do when they say action is what they see. If I'm doing it at home, I can do 40 takes until I like it. I can be up all night. I can, and then I have more control over my work and what I put out. I won't be getting the adjustment from the casting director. That's the sort of cost of that, but the benefit is great. So I think actors who've been working in this time, meaning training, are getting better at working on camera. So I think the faculty has just been madly scrambling for how do we make this work? And that includes Bethany Caputo, who teaches Michael Chekhov, which is also very much an ensemble training. Belinda Mello, and Alexander teachers have a big argument about whether Alexander can be taught in groups, whether Alexander can be taught online, and she's finding ways to make it work and make it work very well. So I think and Katie Flahive she teaches on camera, kind of natural adjustment to this, but also playback's a little bit tricky in how they do that. Justin taught his clowning class, and the final projects, they did a lot of self-tapes. So I think all the teachers are doing what we're asking the students to do, which is improvise, figure out new ways to make it work, and figure out we're learning as we do it what makes it work better. Which means we sometimes stumble on the way. We go, oh, you know what? That'd be better if everybody turned their cameras off. Or, oh, it works if I pin my partner. And, oh, I should turn off camera, whatever it is, self-view, so I don't have to see myself, because that's weird. You don't usually see yourself when you're acting. So we're learning as we go. And what's cool is that most of the students are staying with it, so that they wouldn't do that if they didn't see value, because they pay every month and they're not going to pay for something that doesn't work. You cannot be a wonderful actor if you don't know who you are. You cannot be a wonderful actor if you don't have empathy. Like, you can't just have professional empathy. You need to have civilian empathy. You need to walk by a homeless person who hasn't bathed in a month and make the choice to step inside their shoes instead of being disgusted and wanting to avoid them. Because we need empathy to be actors. We need empathy for all kinds of really different characters. And so that involves a very strong emphasis on my part with students towards self-care. Meaning, are you getting enough sleep? Are you in therapy? Are you eating well? Are you in toxic relationships? Are you taking care of yourself? Are you just watching a lot of junk and eating a lot of junk? Because you are what you eat, which means what you take in, not just what you put into your physical belly. You know, some students ended up going home. One of the weird and interesting things about this is we had students in California and Minnesota and Virginia, North Carolina, Florida, etc. And when you're a 22, 23-year-old who has been in New York for the last 2 years, away from a family that might not have been the healthiest, that part of your development as an artist has been to claim your own identity that might be different from the values. Let's say your parents voted for Trump and you think that's not who you are. Let's say you're gay and it was hard for you to come out to your parents because they're part of the religious right. Whatever, right? That the training you got growing up doesn't feel like who you are. And grappling with that and claiming your own unique identity, even if it's different, unpopular, whatever, is so hard. It's hard enough to do it when you're not in their house. It becomes especially hard to hold on to it when you move back in. They're paying for the food. They're hitting you with their judgment, right? Why are you doing that? Okay, you're graduating next week. When are you going to get a job? I mean, like, the things that come out of some parents' mouths can be so challenging. And it is hard for some students to stand strong. That doesn't mean defiant or oppositional, but just proud and knowing who they are and being able to set healthy boundaries. I saw that in some students. Some students grappled with that and made steps forward. Some students shut down. That came up in their work. Their work started to suffer. They weren't paying as much attention to their work. They were just literally going down the drain. So that's part of self-care. Um, students who, a student said to me the other day, I'm so grateful for this program because I just ended a toxic relationship and I never would have been able to do that without all the work I'm doing here and the guidance I'm getting from you and all my teachers. I mean, you hear that and it's like, God, I'm not here to save anybody's life, but boy, it felt like she saved her life by just listening to the voices that sounded true to her inside herself. So that's also part of holistic, right? And that includes, going to theater and going to art and going to nature and leading a balanced life, all that. And finding pleasure where you can.